Hello all, I'm currently in beautiful Belgrade, Serbia. Wonderful people and a fascinating history. I'm here though at a very tense time socially in Belgrade and in Serbia in general because Belgrade was set to host the 2022 Europride parade. The thing is that the population in Serbia in general are traditionally Orthodox and more conservative in their values. So they don't see homosexuality as something that needs to be paraded in the streets of Belgrade. They also are very averse to the European Union and anything related to Europe in any sense because of a history of wars that were fought and a history of a NATO intervention in 1999 that left most of Belgrade destroyed. So Europride as a concept is in itself not very appealing to the average Serbian person, and that's why the situation here is very tense. With that being said, 2 nights ago, a bunch of my friends from the hostel I'm staying in and I went out to enjoy the Belgrade nightlife. And four Serbian guys who were visibly drunk identified that one of our friends in our friend group was gay. So they came to us and they asked us in Serbian, "Are you gay? Are you gay?" We didn't have a chance to answer, and immediately they started attacking us and physically beating us. And as you can see, I got a blue eye because I jumped into the fight. So the reason that happened is because there's supposed to be a protest versus the Europride and a process asking for the government to ban Europride from taking place on the 12th of September. So the protest eventually culminated in the government, the president, deciding that he has heard the will of the people in Serbia and he's going to cancel the parade. And he said that the police will not intervene to protect it when it actually takes place in Belgrade and Serbia. However, the next day, the organizers of the parade from Europride and from Belgrade Pride jumped in and said that the president cannot cancel the parade and that the parade will still take place at the designated time and the designated place. So now we're in this tense situation where it's unclear if the Europride will take place or not. And to get a clearer picture of the situation, as controversial as it is, and understand the circumstances that led to me randomly getting a blue eye in the streets of Serbia, I decided to contact the leaders of Europride and Belgrade Pride on Twitter, and they agreed to set up an interview with me to explain to me two main things that I was curious about. One is how come one group is saying that Europride is cancelled while the other is saying that it's not? Is it actually going to take place? And two, to understand the process that led to Belgrade being selected as the host for Europride, when obviously the population here and this is the community of Belgrade does not really want them here. So enjoy the interview that I had with Steve Taylor, the head of communications and media for Europride. Steve, thank you again for agreeing to meet with me. And as I explained to you in our Twitter conversation, the reason this matter was brought to my attention is because I was in the midst of a consequence of that tension that exists in the country of Serbia right now. 2 nights ago, my friends and I, one of whom was homosexual, were attacked after we left a bar because four Serbian guys identified that our friend was homosexual. So as you can see here, I got punched, and the guys are in jail now. But it just brought this entire cultural clash into my attention, and it gave me the idea of asking you folks about your opinions and some of the questions that I have about the Europride selection process, and get to the bottom of the situation.
Yeah, well, sorry you had that experience, but I think it is a reality LGBTI people in Serbia and in the wider region. You know, it's not an easy place to be.
Yeah. Can you give me your official title in Europride?
Yeah, so I'm a board member of European Pride Organizers Association, and I'm responsible for communications. Um, in my day job, I'm the director of Copenhagen Pride in Denmark. So all our board members are attached to member prides, and mine is Copenhagen.
Okay. The first question that I had is the selection process. As I read through your website for Europride 2022, there were a lot of bids, a record number of bids, and you ended up with 5. And then the selection committee, which I have a question about that, got to a landslide conclusion with 71% of the vote selecting Belgrade. The first question, who makes up the selection committee?
So there isn't a selection committee. Basically, the bids for Europride are presented at our annual conference.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of our members has a vote. Our members are pride organizations, not individuals. So Copenhagen Pride is a member, Stockholm Pride is a member. And so after the bids, there is a secret vote, secret ballot. And in order to win, one organization that's bidding needs to get 51% of the vote in order to win. So with 4 prides bidding, as we were in 2019, we expected it to go to a second round at least. So we'd have to knock out what got the least and then keep going. But in the first round, Belgrade, as you said, got 71%. So it was an overwhelming majority for Belgrade.
Why do you think that is?
The first thing to say is it wasn't because the other 3 bids from Barcelona, Dublin, and Lisbon weren't any good. They were excellent bids. It was that the narrative from Belgrade was really compelling, that it is time that Europride came to Southeastern Europe, to the Western Balkan region, that it could be transformative for the LGBTI people in those countries, and that it would be in Europride's 30th year, because it first took place in 92. It would be an opportunity to really show that, you know, Europride can continue to be not necessarily radical, but you know, it can be brave, and it can go to places where you wouldn't necessarily think that Europride would happen.
Okay. So the second question about that specific phrase, it is time for Belgrade, and the overwhelming support that the votes came in, 71% specifically for Belgrade. The past couple of days since the incident, I started doing interviews with random Serbian folks, Serbs who are pretty nationalistic, folks who identify on the right wing. And as you know, there was a protest yesterday on Sunday afternoon in Belgrade downtown against Europride in Belgrade. And I interviewed some folks there as well. And their perception of Europride in Belgrade is it seems that there's something that has been foisted upon them by like the evil European Union, NATO powers that be. What do you think about that?
I mean, first of all, Europride has got nothing to do with the EU. Europride was founded in the UK. It's taken place in Norway. It's taken place in Switzerland. It's taken place in many countries outside the EU. And the idea that we are something to do with NATO is even more ridiculous. But what it does show is that the narrative that's put forward by the far right, by nationalists, by neo-Nazis, by the Orthodox Church is pervasive, and it's permeated through to people in Serbia. But the real answer I would give to that is, you know, Europride is going to take place in Belgrade. If you don't like the idea of Europride in Belgrade, don't go. No one is forcing anybody to go. And in fact, the level of security and protection that will be provided to protect the event will mean it's actually very difficult to go to it. So it's not really going to bother anybody who doesn't want to go. I mean, it will be
So
on the news.
yeah, so real quick, can we address the tweet or the statement that the president made, and he said that we cannot protect it with police? That's the one of the reasons why the controversy arose for the cancellation, the potential cancellation. So how is Europride going to deal with potentially lack of police force to defend the Pride marchers?
So the reality of the situation is that with 200 parliamentarians flying in from all over the world, with diplomats taking part, with VIPs taking part, they can't not have the police protect the event. Belgrade Pride happens every year with a huge police operation to protect it. And even if this wasn't Europride, Belgrade Pride would still be taking place. So it would still require that level of police protection. So I think that's scare tactics. The idea that they won't put police on the streets is farcical. And it's not that long ago since a lack of police protection descended in a riot that cost millions of euros of damage to Belgrade. They won't allow that to happen again. So I think that's just a scare tactic to try and persuade us to cancel the event, but it's not going to happen.
Okay, so Europride is kicking in, no pauses, no breaks.
Not at all. I mean, we are, my colleagues and I have met several times with the Belgrade team over the weekend and today. There's no change in our plans. We are continuing. We know that there may be an attempt by the government to ban the event formally, but we are ready. We're ready to go to court if that happens. But actually, if that does happen, it would only be a ban on the march itself, which is one event out of 100 events that are taking place as part of Europride. All those other events would be unaffected.
Okay. So I went through the bids for Barcelona, Lisbon, and Dublin. And in all of those bids, they were able to secure the letters of support from mayors and government officials, a lot of government officials. The one for Belgrade, only Ana Branovic was able to send a letter as an official public figure and an official government representative. And herself in Serbia, from what I understand, she is also a controversial figure because she's lesbian herself. So with that being said, like having 5 bids, one of them does not have support from the mayor, does not have support from a lot of local politicians. How do you think the Europride committee, not the committee, the votes, why do you think the votes still came in so forcefully for Belgrade?
Because the fact that they had such little political support really showed why it's so important to have it in Belgrade. We do say in the process that we want to see letters of support, but the fact that they didn't have letters of support was actually, I think, for a lot of members, quite a compelling reason to support them. Because if you went back to 1992 when the first Europride happened, there were no letters of support then. There were no letters of support from anybody at the start of any Pride event. But Prides took place and Prides continued and were successful, and I think it reflects that.
Yeah, well, it just makes me think because within the application that Belgrade Pride themselves sent in, they have a couple of statistics, like facts and statistics that they share. And one of them is 80%. 80% of Serbian folks asked would not want someone who identifies as a homosexual or queer or LGBTQ plus in general to be their neighbor. Only 20% of the Serbian population interviewed or polled identifies one of their direct relations to be LGBTQ plus or knows of someone who is LGBTQ plus. So with those stark, reminders of how tense this specific topic is in Serbia and how prevailing the traditional ideology that is espoused by the Orthodox Church in Serbia. Doesn't it make sense to maybe add to the process of accepting a country to host Europride a poll? The polls the majority of the population in the city?
Not at all. And that's absolutely the reason why pride is so, whether it's Europride or just a regular pride in those countries and those cities, is so important. I think the first time I went on a pride march in '97, I think you would have polled, and that was in the UK where I'm from. I think you would have found similar polling numbers in the UK. You know, it's a Serbia is on a journey like every country, but they're just a bit further behind in the European context. And having events like Pride, having visibility, showing that LGBTI people are just like anyone else, is actually a really, really important way to move those figures along. Because if you just say, oh, well, you know, the people don't want it, then in a sense, you're giving in to the narrative that's against us, that, you know, we're somehow wrong or freaks or child abusers or whatever.
Hmm. It just makes me think of a lot of the comments that I heard yesterday, of course, and like, yeah, a lot of it is threats of violence. A lot of it's threats of violence that, oh, if they do come, you're gonna see like blood on the streets, essentially. But there's no denying that. I mean, judging by what happened to me and my friends 2 nights ago, there will be violence and potentially even some injuries that are serious, potentially even some deaths. So it just makes me wonder, um, like, where is the line between that Europride draws in the sand between like pushing an agenda forward to liberalize a society and make a conservative society that is more traditional, see LGBTQ folks as people, versus sticking with the traditional. Like, I assume if you had hosted it in Barcelona, it would have been so easy. It wouldn't have had any controversies, and you wouldn't have even needed that much police. So where is the line, if you were to put it? Because it seems from the selection of Belgrade that the line has gone to the extreme on one side.
I would turn the question the other way around and say, well, is there a certain amount of threats of violence that mean we should give in and cancel the event? No right-minded person would say yes. You know, if people are saying there will be people killed, then that's when you should stop. No, it's the duty of the police and it's the duty of the security services in Serbia to protect everybody in Serbia, whether they are gay, straight, whatever. And it's their duty to protect people, tourists, who are coming to Serbia for this event. And there isn't a line, because that line is entirely artificial and made up by threats of violence. And we will never give in to threats of violence. We never have. In the 50 years that the Pride movement has existed, there have always been those threats, and we've never given in. And we won't start now.
Okay. It just seems like a situation where, let's say, you take it a step further and you take it to an Islamic country in Europe, or like majority Muslim country like Albania. Like, what's to stop Albania Pride from bidding? And there's no democratic process within the nation of Albania to put stops and say, we actually don't need this right now. We can potentially examine it 15 years or 10 years or even 5 years down the line. And now is not the time for Albania Pride. It seems like there's no say for the people of Albania or the government of Albania, because it seems like all that is actually required is for the one group, the organization of Albania Pride, in this example, Serbia Pride, Belgrade Pride, to just send in the bid, and all that's needed is for you folks on Europride side to accept it. No intake or input from the populations of those countries or the government.
No country has ever put to a referendum whether there should be a Pride event or not. It's not up to the people of the country. Our fundamental human rights in the European Convention allow us the freedom of assembly and the freedom of association. And that's all that Pride is, whether it's Europride or any other Pride. And so there are Pride events in Albania every year. There are Pride events in Turkey, although the government are cracking down on them. But you know, it's not. It would be a fundamental breach of a citizen's human rights if a country was to allow, just because a majority of people oppose something, for a Pride not to happen. I'd return to the point I made to you almost at the beginning. If you don't like Pride, don't go to Pride. It's a bit like gay marriage. If you don't like gay marriage, don't get gay married. You know, just stay away from it if you don't like it, because nobody's being forced to do anything they don't like. And in a sense, the you know, it is always down to the fact that it is people who are just opposed to progressive ideas and opposed to equality and opposed to human rights, and they will all hold pretty shocking ideas and views about women. They'll hold pretty shocking views about lots of social issues. It won't be just LGBTI issues. And really, those people are the ones that are always holding these countries back, like Albania, like Turkey, like Serbia.
Okay. Well, Steve, thank you very much. You've answered all of my questions, and I just hope that Europride happens in Belgrade in a safe way.
Yeah,